A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on Channel 1 MTV. I'm Ramesh Bandar.
A very good evening. I'm Mahina Bongzo. We start off with a look at the stories making headlines tonight.
Provincial Councillor Shantini Kongage says the government should be held accountable if Rizana Nafiq is beheaded, while Minister Dilan Pereira responds saying such utterances would expedite her execution. Government decides to cancel the land allocation made to investors who delay constructing hotels in Pasikuda. Southern Province Education Minister's summons to teachers and principals disrupts education activities of students. And Greek police fire tear gas to disperse Athens protesters.
President of the International Court of Justice, Hishashi Owada, says that at a time when Sri Lanka is entering a new era, organizing the 50th annual sessions of the Asian African Legal Consultative Organization in the country is a great victory achieved by Sri Lanka. He expressed this view when he met President Mahinda Rajapaksa at Temple Trees last afternoon.
The communique issued by the President's media unit noted that Hishashi Owada had pointed out the similarities that existed in the religious and cultural ties between Japan and Sri Lanka since ancient times. President Rajapaksa has conveyed his gratitude to the President of the International Court of Justice for the assistance rendered by Japan following the 2004 tsunami. Chief Justice Shriyani Bandaranaike and Minister of External Affairs Professor G.L. Piris were among those present at the occasion. Meanwhile, President Mahinda Rajapaksa met with the heads of media institutions today. The meeting was held at Temple Trees this morning. The 2011 Trafficking in Persons report released by the U.S. Department of State yesterday states that Sri Lanka is primarily a source and to a much lesser extent a destination for men, women and children subjected to forced labor and sex trafficking. However, the report has removed Sri Lanka from its watch list and placed it among the Tier 2 countries, which means that the country does not fully meet the standards of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act on human trafficking, but is making efforts to do so.
According to the report, Sri Lankan men, women and some children aged between 16 and 17 migrate consensually to Middle Eastern countries, and some of them find themselves in conditions of forced labor, and within the country women and children are subjected to sex trafficking in brothels and sex tourism. The report issued by the US State Department says that Sri Lanka does not fully comply with the minimum standard for the elimination of trafficking, but is making significant efforts to do so. In issuing recommendations for Sri Lanka, the report states that the government must vigorously investigate and prosecute suspected trafficking offences and convict and punish trafficking offenders, particularly those responsible for recruiting victims with fraudulent offers of employment and the charging of excessive commission fees for the purpose of subjecting them to forced labour. Meanwhile, commenting on the report, U.S. Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Patricia A. Buteris, said that the government of Sri Lanka has made progress in combating trafficking, and the government's efforts have resulted in Sri Lanka's promotion to Tier 2 in the annual Trafficking in Persons report issued for all countries. She adds that much remains to be done in Sri Lanka to reduce trafficking in persons, and that the U.S. is looking forward to work with the government of Sri Lanka to make further progress in the coming year.
United National Party parliamentarian Ranjan Ramanayake says that international support is being garnered to secure the release of Sri Lankan maid Rizana Nafiq. The parliamentarian made this statement at a protest held today, calling for the immediate release of Rizana Nafiq.
This protest was organized opposite the Saudi Arabian embassy in Colombo.
According to my knowledge, they can't execute, they can't behead this girl in this age because she is a child. Sri Lanka send a child to Saudi Arabia to look after a child. So they can't do this. So we are going to give this thing to foreign like American embassy and British embassy and Italian embassy. I think they can help us, and Amnesty International. So please help us to save this girl's life. See, because she is a child.
Meanwhile, at a media briefing today, Central Province Provincial Councillor Shantini Kongage also commented on the issue.
We only got to know last evening that the Saudi Arabian government had ordered to behead her. Minister of Foreign Employment Promotion Dilan Pereira said in Parliament that based on a request made by President Mahinda Rajapaksa, the king of the country had suspended the sentence imposed on Rizana Nafeek. On what basis did Dilan Pereira make this statement? So I would like to say that if this sentence is carried out, the government should be held accountable for Rizana's death. We worked towards securing the release of Rizana Nafeek. All of that came to a stop following the statement made by Minister Dilan Pereira in December. All the work fell apart.
මේ වැඩ කටයුතු ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම අඩපණ වුණා.
මීට අවුරුදු දෙකකට විතර ඉස්සෙල්ලා නියම කරපු මරණ දඬුවමත්
The Saudi government didn't implement the death sentence that was issued 2 years ago due to the intervention of the president. That intervention did not mean that Rizana will be pardoned. We are still working on obtaining a complete pardon in line with the Sharia law of the country. However, Shantini Kongage and Ranjan Ramanayaka don't like obtaining a pardon in this manner. That is why they fabricated this lie last evening. The Saudi Arabian government did not come to a decision last evening to carry out the death sentence on Rizana.
The petition filed by former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca against the First Court Martial's decision to strip him of his titles after finding him guilty of maintaining relations with political parties while in military service was taken up before the Court of Appeal today. The case was called up before Justice Rohini Marasinghe.
We completely support the struggle of the university lecturers. Just as the government fools everyone in the country, it is attempting to fool the university lecturers. The petition cites the present Army Commander, the judges of the First Court Martial, the Judge Advocate and the Attorney General as respondents. It points out that the verdict of the First Court Martial is illegal, contrary to laws of natural justice and malicious. The petitioner seeks a writ of certiorari nullifying the decision of the Court Martial. Counter objections to the preliminary objections raised by the respondents were submitted on behalf of Sarath Fonseca today. Subsequently, the case was postponed until the 5th of July.
Minister of Higher Education S.B. Dissanayake states that the country's education policy will see a drastic change within the next 5 years. The minister said this while attending a leadership training program that is being held in Anuradhapura today.
The second session of the leadership training program for university students was organized at the Pahalagama Police Training College in Anuradhapura with the participation of Higher Education Minister S.B. Dissanayake. Today, 53% of the students are studying arts subjects, 25% study commerce subjects, while 22% study science subjects. Within 4 years, we will reduce the 53% of arts students to 20%. We will increase the 22% in the science stream to 50%. The 25% who are studying commerce subjects will be increased to 30% in English medium. In 5 years' time, we believe that all students in Sri Lanka will study in the English medium for A-levels.
ලංකාවේ සියලුම උසස් පෙළ දරුවන් අධ්‍යාපනය ලබන්නේ ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන්.
The Special Parliamentary Advisory Committee appointed a year ago to make a revolutionary change in the country's national education policy within 3 months convened for the 21st time last Friday. However, the country's education system must function without making the delay in the drafting of a new national education policy an obstacle. This delay could not be an obstacle as the country has a valid education policy that is in operation. In a backdrop where the new policy will not be published anytime soon, the officials, however, seem to be taking decisions that affect the country's education sector as if the current national education policy is no longer in existence. This letter, issued by the administrative officer of the Alpity Zonal Education Office in the southern province, clearly shows this dangerous trend where the provincial education minister seems to have a policy of his own. This letter informs all teachers and principals in the zone to attend a meeting organized to educate them on the education policies and development plans of the southern province education minister. The first of this series of meetings was held at the Akmimina Education Zone of the Akmimina Pradeshiya Sabha, which is facing elections on the 23rd of July. Teachers and principals attended the meeting after closing down their respective schools. The election of the Alpatiya Pradeshiya Sabha is also scheduled to be held on the 23rd of July. As per the letter, teachers and principals in the Karandeniya, Valivita and Divitura education divisions, which comes under the Alpatiya Education Zone, have been summoned to the Ananda Vidyalaya in Alpatiya today. All teachers and principals of the Alpatiya division have been summoned to the Ananda Vidyalaya tomorrow. The letter also gives instructions to close down all schools by 12 noon for this purpose. The letter also states that the travel expenses incurred by teachers and principals in attending these meetings must be borne by the funds of the development societies of the respective schools. It seems the provincial education minister has an education policy unique to him. However, as per the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, the provincial councils must implement the education policy of the line ministry. In such a backdrop, the only option available to the education minister in question was to forward his policies and development plans to the Special Parliamentary Select Committee, who authorized his provincial minister to conduct meetings to supposedly educate teachers and principals while closing down their schools and wasting funds of the school development funds on his policies which cannot be implemented without a constitutional amendment. Chief Minister of the Southern Province, this is over to you.
The government has decided to cancel the land allocations of investors who delay to construct hotels in the Pasikuda tourist zone. This was revealed by Deputy Minister of Economic Development Lakshman Yapa Abewardana while on an inspection tour of the area.
The government has provided 156 acres of land for the Pasikuda tourist zone. A land of 100 acres have been set aside for tourist hotels. Investors have come forward to construct 14 hotels under this initiative, and the total investment is 5,703 million rupees. The construction work of one of the hotels has already been completed ahead of the government's aim to finish construction work of the hotels by the end of the year. A decision has been taken to cancel land allocation if construction work on these hotels do not commence in the next few months. We believe that we will be able to finish constructing at least 5 or more hotels by December. However, it is our target to finish construction work of all the hotels by the end of December.
In more local news, certificates and gifts were awarded to 100 winners of the essay competition organized by Sirasa FM in view of the 2600th Sambuddhatva Jayanti. Incidentally, winners of the first phase of the Sirasa FM Budale promotional campaign were also selected today.
A group including executives of the Capital Maharaja Organization and Sirasa FM staff attended the event held at the Sirasa TV studio complex in Depanama. The winners of the junior and senior essay competitions under the theme If Lord Buddha Was Alive received their certificates and gift money.
Sirasa FM is not a channel that airs ordinary programs. As a channel that went beyond ordinary radio channels, we have been able to be the closest relative. This is because we have been able to do more than ordinary radio and be close to the listeners. It is because we have been a part of your lives, irrespective of religious, gender or age difference, that Sirasa FM is the #1 position.
Meanwhile, the presentation of gifts to winners of the first phase of the Sirasa Budale promotional program was also held today. Winners received 3-wheelers, tractors, laptops, motorcycles, TVs, washing machines and mobile phones as gifts.
This brand has been given the recognition as what a radio channel can do to uplift our lives, especially in the rural outstation areas where we believe there is a lot of talent and there is a lot of need for support. And this brand has been there for them right throughout the last so many years. Sirasa FM as a brand has always been staying as #1 in the hearts and minds of the Sri Lankan people. It has always proved to stay on #1 as a radio station in the industry. Sirasa FM radio has identified who we are as by involving in traditional and cultural activities in the country. The culture which we all belong to as Sri Lankans, Sirasa has been part and parcel of promoting this culture.
50 winners of the Sirasa Kadamala promotional program also received motorcycles at the presentation.